Good afternoon, hello, my name is Daniel and this video is for the data geeks out there. More specifically, I took part in a couple of days ago the Outlaw half Holkham triathlon. It's a middle distance triathlon or 70.3 distance triathlon, and it was the British Middle Distance Championships. Now, I didn't win, but I did finish 75th overall. I think I was either 13th or 18th in my age group, I can't remember exactly. I finished in 4.5 hours, and in this video, I'm going to talk you through the data, the numbers behind the performance. I often say I'm not going to make a video just looking at a Training Peaks screen because it's boring, and I do agree to a point, but a fair few people have actually asked me about it, so I thought, well, what better way for me to put it out there than to make a video. So hopefully you get something from this. I apologise in advance if I get some of the numbers wrong or I don't understand the metrics, but there's a lot more on there than I actually use, so feel free to drop any comments down below. Let's get stuck straight in. So first of all, this performance, I put a lot of notes on after an event, so all those are on here, so feel free to read those. I'll talk about some of them as well, and I find it helps me when I look back at races either from previous years. I can learn some things when I'm making a plan for that year's race. Anyway, the swim, 1.9k open water swim. It wasn't that technical, there are a few turns, but there always are. The swim went pretty much to plan for me. I swam pretty hard, 1.918k, so 180 meters over 1.9k. Sorry, 18 meters over 1.9k. This is starting well. That is well within tolerance for GPS errors, me not swimming in a straight line. I'm really happy with that. That's my fastest this distance swim I've ever done, so I'm really happy. Let's go to analyze and look at some of the data in more detail. Now I have my watch set up to lap every 500 meters just so it vibrates, so I'm getting a feel for how much further I've got to go. So the first 500 we can see here it was 8:16, the second one 8:55, the third one 8:29, then of course the last one's only 400 and something meters, so was a bit shorter. Now vaguely speaking, all of these were the similar sort of pace. Now the first one, although it looks like it was quite a bit faster, if you look at right at the beginning, that's me running down the pontoon and jumping in, right? So it's not going to be just from the swim. I'd actually say it's a similar pace to these other two. I did start swimming like quite hard and my heart rate got up quite high quite early on. I did get a little bit of stitch from that, but I felt like I paced it pretty evenly throughout, as you can see from these different slots here. The heart rate does come on all these files from my wrist, from my Garmin Epix 2 watch. It is very good, but it is not amazing in the water. It will be a lot better from the chest strap, but I don't like wearing the chest strap when I race. But hopefully you'll agree. I think that data is actually pretty reliable. There's no big jumps or anything. It looks okay. So that was the swim. Not really much else to say other than that. I swam hard. I had a 40 gram OTE super carbs gel before the start. Didn't get much breakfast down me, we got some down me, and had a couple of good toilet motions. This is TMI already, isn't it? So yeah, swim done and dusted. Into T1, dropped a couple of gels that come out of my pocket in my tri-suit during the swim, but otherwise smooth, and that's T1 pretty much done and dusted. On the bike, got more to talk about here, haven't I? So my notes from here were group politics, drop chain at 51 miles, and power meter drop out or only one pedal for the first few minutes. So the highlight scores on the doors were just over 2 hours and 17 minutes, 55.5 miles, 24.2 miles an hour. You can read all this, can't you? But the key things I'm looking at are normalized power, 267 watts, kilojoules, so energy expended, just under 2,000, average heart rate of 140, and then average power of 257. We're looking at the difference between the average and the normalized power. Average power is just a mathematical average. How many watts did you do divided by how long, average power. Normalized is a calculation that the computer does, which basically tells you what effect has that actually had on the body. So an example of this would be if you were to do 10 times 10 second sprints in an hour of steady riding, your average power would be pretty low, but actually the normalized power would be a lot higher because that actually measures the effort or reflects the effort that it's taken to put those numbers out. Does that make sense? Probably not. Hopefully you understand it better than I do. Let's have a look at the ride in a bit more detail then. Now I have to get rid of some of these stats which don't really add anything to this. So this is the Analyze tab of Training Peaks. There's a smoothing scale here, so I can smooth that data out a lot, or I can have it sort of halfway, or I can have it really spiky. I tend to put it sort of halfway because then I can still see the spikes, but it's not as all over the place. It doesn't really mean anything when that happens. Now the first half, I know we're a bit out and back there, but from here out to there, it's a decent headwind, maybe 7 or 8 miles an hour headwind, and then of course from there for the second half we had a cross tailwind most of the way back. So for this first half, if we were to take, let's just look at from the start of the ride until where we turned into the tailwind, I've normalized 267 watts, an hour and 20 minutes, 243 watts average 137 average heart rate, and the speed was 23.3 miles an hour. Now that one there, variability index, that shows the difference between the average and the normalized as a percentage. So I don't know the exact calculations, but basically so that's pretty spiky. I have had rides where it's been a bit higher than that on courses like Wales or even Cork, I suppose, but actually that's not bad. The second half of the ride, we will see, I'm sure we will see, is that it is, oh, it's even higher. Now, the only reason that's higher is because I had a couple of digs to try and get away from groups and when I dropped my chain to get back on and so on. But if it wasn't for those, that second half of that ride would have been a lot smoother. And as we can see from here, the second half, my average speed was 25.7 miles an hour for a normalised power of 268, so a pretty similar normalised power, but the speed was a couple of miles an hour faster because of that tailwind. Now, there are some sections in here, like if we look at this, where I'm riding in a group and it's really fast and it's actually not very hard at all. So 229 watts for 14 minutes and my average speed was 28.2 miles an hour. That's how easy it is at some times when you've got good wind and when you're in a group. Now later on in the ride when I drop my chain, so if we were to look at this end, so if we zoom in, this is where I was just still riding, this is where I dropped my chain, so let's have a look how much time that cost me. That's not right, is it? 1 second. 20, so I feel like it's 17 seconds or something. 16, 17 seconds of stopped time. So I'd estimate it took me maybe 30 seconds in total that I lost. Then when I got back on the bike, I then worked hard, got back to and past the group that I was with, and for just under 8 minutes I normalised 324 watts and averaged 316, and my heart rate was around threshold or just below threshold heart rate. So that's a fairly hard interval there, but that's where I would expect to be if I'm feeling strong and if I want to do a few minutes of sustained hard effort, perhaps if I was riding into a headwind or if I wanted to get away from a group or something, that's the sort of numbers I'd be doing. I felt good doing that, but I didn't do anything else like that earlier on in the ride. I did a couple of digs, but nothing that sustained. See if we can have a look at earlier on. I've zoomed out too much now, haven't I? Anyway, you get the idea. So that's the overall ride. How did it feel? Pretty good, to be honest. I felt okay. That easy bit towards the end really made it easier for me as like an overall ride, but then that 7 or 8 minute surge at the end wasn't ideal for setting the run up, but it was all right. Not the hardest ride I've ever done in a 70.3. Nutrition wise, so you can see there I had a 40 gram super gel at 0, so as soon as I got on the bike I had a gel, then at 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes, basically every half an hour. And then I had 2 bottles of fluid, which were made up of some full steam carb mix and some caffeine in there as well, and a bit of sodium. So I had something like nearly 300 grams of carbs on the bike, which is a lot, but I am 90 kilos, so I need to take on a lot, and I can take on a lot. And that really, on here, I could have got around that ride on half of that nutrition, but I couldn't have done the run that I did on half that nutrition. So that's the ride as a whole, 2,200 calories as well, so made it up for those later on. T2, pretty uneventful other than racking in the wrong place and having to move my bike again, but there you go. This is quite interesting. Run. Now, a PB run for me, the second fastest ever half marathon I've ever ran, the fastest I've ran in a 70.3, emptied the tank and had a great run and negative split and just missed 4:30, unhappy smiley. I'm not that happy about it, but it is what it is. So we can see here 13.3 miles, 1 hour, just under 1 hour 35. Intensity factor here is showing that I ran at threshold. Now all that is saying to me is that my training peak zones aren't set up correctly for the run. I can't run at threshold for an hour and 35, so that hasn't happened. My threshold is obviously a bit higher. After this race, Training Peaks did tell me my threshold had gone down to 6:57 per mile, but I don't really use that. I just use feel for running quite a lot of the times. But let's have a look at some of these achievements that I've achieved during this run. So my fastest, well, basically every distance from 400 meters to 10k of this year has been done in this race. Now that's great, you should do your best performances in a race, but that's not good because that shows that I haven't ran a 400 faster than I've run in a middle distance triathlon this year. I'm not doing enough proper run training, I'm not doing enough intensity on the run. Even things like a 5k at 21 minutes, that's a decent effort for me, but I shouldn't be doing that or a season best at the beginning of July in a middle distance try. So I know I need to work on my running. I'm a bit hesitant, to be honest, because of the injury risk, but I know I need to do some more intensity, so I will do. Nutrition wise, 40 gram gel at 20 minutes, 50 minutes, 1 hour and 15, mouthfuls of water every aid station and lots on me. Fair enough. If we were looking at splits, I'm not going to go through minute by minute, but I essentially negative splitted this run. So the first few miles here, so see 7:14, 7:12, 7:06, all sort of low sevens. As soon as I get quite a way through the run, I know that I need to push on for a time, I get 7:07, 7:01, 7:03, 7:14 is the last one up that hill, and then I really kicked on to the end, so 7 minutes dead, 6:54, and then 6:46, ever so slightly downhill granted, but I really pressed on up there and I was really happy with it. Overall numbers, some average heart rate is 154. I've been around there quite a lot for half marathon runs, so that is showing that I'm getting a little bit fitter. 7:06 minute miling, more training stress than on the bike, but as I said earlier, if my run zones aren't set up correctly, then it'll be showing a higher training stress than is actually the case. And 500 feet of climbing. I think that is about it for nutrition and numbers from this event. If anybody's got any questions, please do feel free to let me know down below. But I feel like that performance, I swam as hard as I could, I biked within myself and did what I could around the groups that are around me on the road, and perhaps wasted some energy trying to get away from groups and you know, trying to ride solo, ride my own pace. I think I lost a bit of time by sitting in groups for too long, but I feel like that was an efficient use of energy to then run faster. And then the run, I absolutely pinned it and got everything I could out. So on the whole, a very good day, to be honest. Very often triathlon goes wrong for a lot of people, doesn't it? So I feel like pacing it, particularly on the bike, is the key to a good overall performance. And I'm going to get to work now. I have 6 weeks before Cork 70.3. I'm currently too sore to do any meaningful training, but within the next few days I'll pick something up, get 4 or so weeks in of proper training, going to get in some good shape, the best shape I can to deliver some more good racing this year. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button down below. Sorry if you're not a nerdy, you've not enjoyed that, but I thought it was good to get out there, and I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. See you later.